Hey everyone, today we're diving into a really bold new vision for the entire global construction industry. It's a plan to completely transform how we build, turning one of the biggest sources of carbon pollution into a powerful tool for, well, healing our planet. Let's see how they propose we do it.
First up, I want you to just think about this number. Almost 40%. Get this, that's the slice of our annual global CO2 emissions that comes directly from the building sector. It's a staggering figure, and it makes construction one of the absolute biggest climate challenges we face.
And that challenge? It's about to get much, much bigger. Projections show that the world's total building stock, I mean every single house, office, and factory, is on track to potentially double by the year 2060. Just wrap your head around that for a second. We could build an entire planet's worth of buildings all over again in just a few decades.
So here's the bottom line. If we just keep building the way we do now, with concrete and steel, we could release a colossal 70 gigatons of CO2 into the atmosphere. At that scale, meeting our global climate goals becomes, well, pretty much impossible. We have to change the formula.
So what's the alternative? Well, this report proposes a really radical shift. Instead of fighting against nature, what if we could build with it? The whole idea is to create a regenerative, nature-based construction economy.
And this really lays out the two paths so clearly. The old way is linear and extractive. We take resources, we use them once, and then they become waste in a landfill. But the new way? It's circular and regenerative. We use materials like timber that actually store carbon, and we design our buildings to be reused and recycled, creating this closed loop.
And I love this quote from Nasranenda. It just perfectly captures the spirit of this whole shift. It's not just about, building better structures. It's about building a better story for our future, one where our communities and our planet can actually thrive together.
Okay, so to turn this big vision into something real, the report outlines a blueprint based on 5 core principles. Think of them as the guardrails for making sure this big switch to timber construction is both responsible and really effective.
All right, so here they are, the big 5. First, we've got to extend the life of the buildings we already have. Second, we must account for every single ounce of carbon from start to finish. Third, our forests have to be managed sustainably. That's non-negotiable. Fourth, we can actually use wood to lock away carbon for generations. And finally, we need to build an entirely new economic system to support all of this.
So let's dig into that first principle with a simple question that really gets you thinking. What is the single most sustainable building you can possibly imagine? Is it, made of bamboo, covered in solar panels? What do you think?
The answer is so simple, it's beautiful. It's the one that's already standing. Seriously, the most impactful thing we can do is to stop seeing demolition as the default option. Prioritizing renovation and finding new uses for old buildings is our most powerful and immediate climate strategy.
And the numbers totally back this up. Choosing to renovate an existing structure instead of tearing it down and building something new can cut greenhouse gas emissions by as much as 75%. That is a massive saving just by rethinking our approach to what we already have.
All right, let's move to principle number 2, which is all about accountability. See, to make smart choices, we need to measure everything. And whole life carbon assessment is the tool that lets us do that. It tracks all the emissions a building is responsible for, from the moment materials are dug out of the ground until the building's very end of life.
Now, a really crucial part of that accounting is understanding the difference between 2 types of carbon. You've got fossil carbon from making cement or steel, and that's a one-way trip into the atmosphere. But then you have biogenic carbon, the kind stored in wood. That's part of a natural cycle. The tree absorbs it, we lock it away in a building, and it stays out of the atmosphere. It's a totally different game.
So this brings us to a really important question. Won't building with more wood just lead to more deforestation? Well, according to Thijs Slinhara's Juvenal from the FAO, it can actually do the opposite. If we create a sustainable demand for timber, it gives forests more economic value. And that creates a powerful incentive to protect them and manage them for the long term.
And that leads us to the 4th principle, which is honestly a revolutionary idea. Thinking of our buildings as carbon banks. Yeah, you heard that right. When we use engineered wood products, what's known as mass timber, in long-lasting structures, we are literally taking carbon out of the atmosphere and storing it in our cities for decades, maybe even centuries.
So how do we make sure we're maximizing that storage? Well, first, we prioritize really durable wood products. Then we design buildings so they can be easily taken apart later and their parts reused. And we use what's called cascading materials, so a giant beam from one building might become flooring in another, keeping that carbon locked away through multiple lives.
The fifth and final principle is the one that really ties it all together. See, this isn't just about changing materials, it's about building a whole new system. A responsible bioeconomy needs coordinated government policies. It needs education and training for everyone from architects to foresters to builders. It needs constant innovation in new biomaterials. And, crucially, it has to support local communities in a fair and equitable way.
So, okay, we have the principles, they sound great, but the real question is, how do we actually put them into action? How do we overcome the inertia of the old system and truly make construction a force for good?
Well, here are some clear, actionable pathways. To fight our demolition habit, policies can require developers to prove renovation is impossible before they can get a demolition permit. To build trust in reused materials, we need clear industry standards, a marketplace for salvaged parts. To close the knowledge gap, circular design needs to be taught in every architecture and engineering school. And to fix our outdated building codes, we can shift the focus from what materials to use to the performance we need, which opens the door for all kinds of innovation.
And so the report leaves us with this one final, powerful question. The principles are here, the science is here, the pathways are clear. The evidence really suggests that, yes, we can transform construction. It's going to take a huge, coordinated global effort, but the potential is just immense to build the homes and cities we need while actually healing the one planet we have.